G'day, g'day, g'day. It's Mathematical KM here. Remember their initials, not a title. It's Keith Mullumby. Round one of the cold, and it's cold in Canberra, Cold Comfort Cup. And I was on board one. Not on board one that often, you got to understand. But board one and playing the top seed. And that's kind of how they do the seeding at the start of these long tournaments. And I guess it's nice because you get to play, if you're not the super strongest, you get to play the real strong players early in the piece. Now, I'm currently 1450 and my opponent, Masaki, 1986, the year I did year 12 in. So that's 1900 take 1400, 9 take 4, 530, about 535 points uphill, and with the black pieces. And quick little secret, it's the school holidays and I'm a teacher, and I spent the last 3 days watching the Chess Bras Stonewall speedrun. And I was ready to play the Stonewall tonight just for something different. Unless I was black, which we didn't know beforehand, and black against e4. Against anything else, it was going to be a Stonewall. So I got black, and I was against the top seed, and he played e4. Let's go into the water horse, the Hippopotamus. Okay. So this is fairly standard stuff for those who've been watching my videos. I will point out that the slightly different move order immediately after bishop to c4, it's a memory point to play e6 then. Denying a bit of prophylaxis there before fianchettoing on that down there. He's castled. Now we get ready to fianchetto. We've got these two pawns ready to deal with an A pawn push. In fact, if were he to push, it would be a nice move for us coming with tempo. We fianchetto, he moves a rook into the centre, knight into the centre. He moves another bishop out to the side, pawn forward, and he's doubled his rook with his queen in line with my king. Okay, now unlike some of my other games I've been playing 60 minutes where I probably haven't used the clock that well, I forced myself to spend 10 minutes looking at this. I think a much younger opponent here. I don't know about using psychology, but born in 2010, so how much younger does that make him? 15. So, you know, young adult, youth. Don't know that he liked me spending 10 minutes having a big think. And I'm actually, this is called the breather moment, for those of you who've watched any of Solomon's, the Chess Giants videos, or his course on the water horse, the Hippopotamus. And there are and I've come in slightly early. Forgive me, my analysis. The game may end up not quite going how I like, but in some ways this is the best Hippo game I have played, and playing 500 points uphill. Now I've got the full thick-skinned Hippo with that both knights do need to be in the middle. He's brought his other rook into the middle, and now I spent 10 minutes looking at this. And just to go through the thought process, you've got, what's that, 6 pawn pushes, 2 knight moves, and that's your basic, you pick after the breather moment with some sort of a plan. Now, Those two are very rarely used, so they're not on. And if there is a bishop that can strike at the D pawn, then that one's not on. Same, that one's not on. This one is looking at complications because of that A pawn there, and it's not directly trying to achieve a goal, so I'm forgetting that one. Now, part of Solomon's course is you look at which of the pawns doesn't have a major piece behind it. Now, of course, both of them do, so that's no good. But you also look at which one's easier to, less defended. This pawn is being defended by a rook, a queen and a knight, so 3 pieces. This one is being defended only by a knight and a rook, so 2 pieces. So maybe, just maybe, I think I can get an attack on that D pawn, is the thought. And working on that, there we go, with the lights. If I can move that knight, then there'll only be the 1 piece. I mean, it's a rook, but that could be a bit of a plan. And neither of the knights jumping around, in particular, that one's not good. These are my 2 candidate moves, and looking at the knight to here, if he brings the pawn forward and I move the knight, that gets complex and it's not directly trying to win for me. So, but the G pawn forward, bishop's got to move. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it moved there? Blocking, then I'd immediately only have the 1 defender, and I could play, now that the bishop's gone, I could play the C pawn push and have 2 pieces trying to win that central pawn. Bit of a plan. If he goes further, he'll still have his 2 pieces, but if I can arrange to go again, the knight's got to shift, and if the knight moves, then there's either, if the knight comes here, there's no pieces protecting it, but even if it comes across, there's only the 1, and then we can work on getting our 2 pieces. We will need to protect our pawn on G4. So you can, if you've been watching all my other videos, you can already tell that I spend a bit more time in this 10 minutes looking at the breather moment. And I do intend to, via the Patreon with Solomon Riddell, get his opinion on this fairly interesting breather moment. I don't think I've seen anything like it before, with only major pieces behind both of those pawns. So, 535 points uphill. Let's try my little plan from the breather moment. Mind you, step 1, achieve the full thick-skinned hippo against Masaki. And yeah, so that's an achievement number 1. But here we go. So what's he going to do with the bishop? Computer likes G3 for him. But that wouldn't be a very normal sort of a move. E3, which would actually help him protect that piece. But if he'd gone there, all of a sudden there would be 3 pieces protecting this pawn, but this pawn would only be protected by 1. And I've got that bishop, and I could look at, I couldn't attack it immediately with the F pawn, which is maybe why that's a good move, because otherwise his bishop would take my E pawn. I could look at maybe doing it with a knight. But let's see, where did Masaki, he's gone all the way back to C1. Okay, so we're halfway there. And this is to go to one of my other favourite streamers, the Ginger GM, Simon Williams. I don't know how true it is, but having a plan, even if it's a bad plan, is better than not having a plan. Anyway, so we're working on getting that D pawn. And let's move one of the two protectors. By the by, for those watching the eval, and eventually we'll look at the graph for the whole game at the end. Because the computer likes space and the full thick-skin hippo, you're not touching the 5th rank at all. You're always about -1 is where you expect to be. So that's sort of like the new 0, and that corrects itself once the two armies merge. Anyway, so he's got to move the knight, and he's moved it not in front of the rook to give me that pawn for free. And now there's also the queen has got a line on the G pawn which is hanging. Now, if I can maintain only the one defender here and I can protect my G pawn, I can have a go at my plan. And the easiest way of protecting the G pawn, I mean, there's bringing the knight across, but H5, and it's actually the top computer move. So let's go, we played the top computer move, H5. Now, let's see what's white going to do. I almost wouldn't mind either of these and going the Lego, locking it up in the middle, and then we're into more of where the hippo player is comfortable. But with all of that firepower, get the impression that Mr. Horikawa is looking to blast through the middle. He's castled, my king's still in the middle. That's what he'd like to do. So he would not like to afford me the opportunity to lock it up Lego-like in the middle. Other thoughts, if I can move this knight, his knight is hanging and it can't move to any of its squares. It can be captured by a pawn. So there'd be some sense in moving that knight. But I'm also ready for a standard hippo plan. There's only one piece protecting that pawn. So we go with the c-pawn push, which we can do because there's no longer a bishop on f4. And we have two pieces attacking a pawn that's only defended by the one. If he takes mine, I get rid of a central pawn for a flank pawn, which is the likely outcome. Okay, he's made his knight into an outpost, but it sort of does weaken his king a little. And you can see it's down 0.7. Remembering that the new 0 level's +1 for white, in some senses. And that means that I can't go off and take his knight with my queen, but I can continue with the standard hippo plan. I've now got the two attackers on that pawn. Interestingly enough, and this is where, whilst Masaki's the top seed, we're not playing on Title Tuesday or anything, I find it interesting that the computer's saying that D5 is the best. And E5 is the following move. And then it's all tied up in the middle and we go into a bit more of a standard sort of a hippo fight. With it all locked up like that, I'd probably try and arrange to castle on the queen side. I've already got some fairly advanced pawns on the king side. That's a game that it didn't become. but it's plus 2.26 with that. Looks fairly innocuous, particularly when you see it's a long time till anything happens. That's something that after this video, tomorrow I might have a look at that particular line. That will be of interest. But a much, much more human move, and particularly is with the thoughts of wanting to blast through with all that artillery he's got there, and black hasn't castled. He takes a flank pawn with a central pawn. Obviously, I'd be crazy if I was to take with the D pawn. It's interesting that the B pawn taking is... I can see some advantages to it, but... And where's C? Bishop takes C3. Doubling his pawns is an idea that is in my head, but we'll be doing that soon enough. But this is where I did have a little plan. Having the queen in front can be a little problematic. I think I can grab that pawn with my knight if nothing else changes, only protecting it with one piece. He's got two pieces. I've only got the one. But his first piece to take will be a queen. So he's not going to take it. But he's also got this knight. But I've got a bishop that can trade for that knight, doubling the pawns and then letting me take the pawn. So again, taking a bit of time. Let's see, we're up to move 15. When we get to move 18, here's 51 minutes and I have 40. So we'll take that time check when we get there, at move 18. But, so I've taken with the knight, first bit of my plan. And I'm already thinking ahead. Double the pawns, grab the other central pawn. He's rerouting the knight that couldn't go anywhere without being taken by a pawn. But it's jumped up to 1.5 to black. So feeling that my plan's not the worst one in the world here. And you'll note that bishop takes c3 was the best computer move. Obviously he takes back. Strangely, oh no, knight takes a4, which would then be looking at c3, which would be a fork, but he'd have a chance to do something about that. It's funny, the move I've played wasn't on there. And his best move is rook to d4 to give himself another piece to tell the knight to go away. But basically, he's not able to take the knight that's caused the problems. His third best. Bishop takes a6. And then the rook would take the bishop. And that's his third best. My pieces are a little more active and doing better than you would have thought here. Okay, so anyway, let's have a look. What does he do? And at this point, and again, this is move 18, the first one I wrote the clock down on, because I took my 10 minutes on the breather moment, and the young whiz kid top seed was banging out those moves real quick. And he was still pretty much 60 minutes before this move finished. And then he played this move he had 51 minutes on the clock and I had 40 minutes on the clock for move 18. And what did all that thinking time get him? Taking away the fork of rook and queen with the bishop. So, I need some sort of a plan. And it's a bit funny, but can't do that with a queen. But imagine I had the queen there. Then you're getting a pretty strong checkmate threat, and pawn forward, I've got pawns. There's, again, half a plan. Okay. So he's taken away that, but for right now, in fact, that knight doesn't need to move. And, you know, another thought that I had during the game, 3 days watching GM Aman from Chessbra playing Stonewall Dutch with a knight on e4, much of the time causing problems for the opponent. Just saying. I know this is not a Stonewall. There you go. So, trying to get the queen here. And he hadn't fought. Okay, now things have changed. Now he's looking to be able to take the knight with a rook. I could take back. He'd take me. Oh, is a rook worth a bishop and a knight? Oh, and the pawn that I took initially. It's meant to be even, but somehow, in many ways, that knight is my bestest piece at the moment anyway. And I kind of don't really want to lose it. And that was his move 19, and he took another 10 minutes, 41 minutes when he played that. I took 2 minutes to take me to 38 before I played. Funnily enough, that plan also doubles up the protection on the knight and meant the knight didn't need to move. If he took the knight now, I'd take back. He could take my queen with his. And I'd be going up the exchange with a bishop for a rook. Sorry, a knight for a rook. Which he's not going to go with. So he had another bit. He had a huge think on this one. Move 20, he dropped down to 30 minutes. The first time in the game, his clock had been less than mine. 30 minutes to my 32 minutes. And this fork is no longer there. And it's taken out. I've already done pretty well. We're pretty deep into the game, playing the top seed. And for the next couple, it's on plus 4.3 to me. Move 20. In hindsight, it's a bloody obvious plan. Obviously, his queen is to protect the knight from that skewer. But to cause more problems in there, the obvious plan, the minus 4.5 move, is G5 and then F3. Oh, it's on the cards in there. With the check, and because it's a check, we can go up and get a rook. And it's at this point, it's deep in here. Greed is not always good. I've got such active pieces aimed at his king that I should activate that skewer. So obvious now. Anyway. Hanging pawn. It's a distraction, didn't need to think about it. King D7 to reinforce what's going on here. Because at the moment the queen's the only one protecting that pawn. So King D7 or castle, get the king out of there, get another piece aimed at the queen there. So Knight G5 activating the queen and the bishop. king d7, protecting that pawn more, or castling. And they're all better than -3, even though only 1 point up. Greed got away with 1. We're still at -2.5 by picking up that pawn. And it moved 21. Our clock stayed pretty much together for the rest of this, so we'll just leave that. This pawn's also hanging, but it's the queen would be pretty foolish to go in there amongst all those pieces, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. Nice move. And yet again, -3.7 is activate that bishop, get the knight to safety, and go on from there. And knight to c5. It's protected by 2 pawns. It's got places to go. That's second best, not as good. But I'll tell you what, if the third best move is f5, which is protecting the, protecting the knight with a pawn, giving the bishop and the queen freedom to move and making the pawn chain, I can see, but that's only -0.06. So you can only imagine how bad grabbing that poison pawn. And he can swing it from the -3 up to +2.5 for white with rook e2. And played. There's a reason this guy is 530 points above. Okay, let's see how we can get out of this. So I've pulled the queen back. Let's try and get that queen to safety. Nice move. And this is where we hit the no guts, no glory. I had 2 candidate moves here. One was we're +3 on material, and I knew that. That's +3. It's more than that, really, because it's such an effective piece. But there's queen here. Get the queen to safety. Protecting the bishop. And he can have the knight. There you go. But a far more active, and if that happens, he'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll be 6 versus 5 pieces in his favour because I've got the pawns. But I seriously considered, and the computer's telling us right there it's the best move by far, is rook takes d4. Sorry, queen takes d4. Because I was calculating, if I went queen takes rook, and he takes me back, and then I take the bishop, then I get a rook and a bishop for a queen, which is pretty equal, but I will have 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll have 5 pieces, and he will have 4 pieces. I'll have the greater number of pieces, and what's more, I'll have a bishop here and a knight here in pretty, active, threatening places. It was far and away the better, +1. Funnily enough, let's just if I play this move, the best move for white is not taking the queen with the pawn, believe it or not. it is taking the bishop for free, then the queen moves and you get a rook as well. Quite a different game. Let's get this. We'll go to the move that was played. And very much that signed the end of what had been a pretty valiant struggle uphill, getting a much better position in the middle game. And if only I'd had the guts to go with my instinct. Anyway, he has taken the bishop. Take it back. And now I've got 4 pieces. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. And the material's equal. However, it's +3 to white. I no longer have all this lovely stuff in the middle actively threatening his king. And his 2 rooks are pretty active. And the queen's ready to snap into action. And it won't take much to activate that bishop. Okay, so we're up to move 25. And for what it's worth, the clock was 27 minutes to my opponent and 22 minutes to me. I've finally... it's not the knight that could have got there quickly, but this knight is thinking about getting in. He's brought his queen across to activate, lined up on my knight on the diagonal, so you'll be able to get move his rook anywhere and be attacking the knight. So if he can be doing damage with the rook, like for example check, all sorts of badness happening. Check. Yeah, not good. So I need to... Let's get the knight out of the way, and in fact in the way of those checks. Was that one of the better moves? It was the best move. But we're positionally, no longer in a good place. Playing the check was best. I moved. Going directly to the check now is only plus 1.7. That was by far and away the better move for me. But I've moved the rook. He takes the knight, so it's not going to get to play that check. I take, he gets to win the pawn. It's just starting to, as you can see, go a bit downhill. At least I noticed that, or not, because that pawn is pinned to the king. Now the pawn could take the knight if the knight shifts. Now I've only been looking at what I can take, and I had felt the game slip, but no excuses whatsoever. And just, the class being shown by my opponent, but given the game I'd played so far, kind of more than a little bit disappointed in myself, only looking at, one half of the board and not seeing that. So it's a bit of a complete blunder there. But as far as that game goes, playing the top seed, he was playing, well, I guess that means for this particular tournament, must have been the lowest seed, or I don't know how much randomness there is when they get the tournament draw for these. Come on, Mr. Computer. Inquiring minds want to know how this went. Oh, you don't need to be seeing me. Here we go. And you can see that, the it's first 10 moves being fairly flat. That's setting the hippo up for those hippo players getting the thick-skinned hippo. You can see it right there. You can see what the white player was looking at. Maybe something he's not used to facing. And we're not quite there. There we go. That's telling him to shut up. But from the moment of achieving thick-skinned hippo, you can see it's a fairly smooth, dare I say, hippopotamus win getting it down here. A greedy move. The queen in to where it didn't need to be, and the obvious plan. Oh, that's where that one got away. That's deep into the middle game, and I would say that was a fairly well played water horse against the top seed in the tournament, right up until when it wasn't. And I like to shut him up, but it never does like the hippo in the accuracy because of the first 10 moves. White played 2 great moves. Well, we know the final blunder. 1700 to 1500. His opening accuracy 95. My only opening accuracy playing the hippo, this is something to take home, 94. And then in that middle game, it was really good till it wasn't. And that really cut it back down. Well, folks, so you watched a little bit of a shock. Didn't end up being the upset that it threatened to be, but last seed nearly knocking the top seed over certainly gave him a bit of a shock, and that's round 1 of the Cold Comfort Cup. Bye for now.